I gave up corporate. I'm very grateful. I was in the multifamily apartment industry for 20 years.
Okay.
And it did afford me to be able to provide for my children and a really nice, decent life. And it felt weird to say it, but I knew, I was like, I'm done. And so here we are today, knowing now, just through the leap of faith and then the changes that I've been able to make, is if you have a talent and you have a desire and you have a dream, go for it.
Welcome to the Biz Life Podcast. I am Donnie Bedore, your host. We are here to talk about the business life, not the busy life. So I have Amanda Goodson from BlistFull Spaces or BlistFull Events or both.
It's BlistFull Spaces and Air Blist events.
There you go. And we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But y'all are going to want to stay tuned to this podcast. It's going to be great. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Welcome to the Biz Life. How you been?
I am great and super excited about this. It's my first podcast ever.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember mine. I was really nervous at first. And
I'm not really nervous. I'm more excited, but also like what's to come. So
yeah.
Excited.
Great. Well, I love having business owners on here, talking about them, talking about their experiences in business. You know, one thing I always say is that life is too short to make all the mistakes yourself, learn from other people.
That's a good one.
At least that's what I've been telling my kids all their lives. And hopefully they're listening. But, I just like having people on here and talking about business. And not necessarily business as far as revenue and expenses and all the boring junk of business, but just life. Because really what I found is that, especially for entrepreneurs or business owners, your business really becomes your life.
True. That is so true.
It really is, right? And your life ties so much into it. It's not like you can really clock in and clock out on being a business owner.
That is true too.
Right. And
You're
so,
on it.
yeah. So let's start off. I always like starting off with warming up the audience on, who's the guest this week. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and your business or your family, and we'll go from there.
Great.
Yeah.
So in 2004, I relocated from the Lubbock area to the DFW.
Okay.
And I brought 5 children and a husband at that time with me. And I knew that one of the reasons I was relocating was because of BlistFull Spaces. I had been doing events and organization for probably about 20 years at that time, just naturally, word of mouth.
Okay.
And I utilized some of those resources and revenue and relocated.
Okay.
Did not have a full plan in place, but I knew that I was supposed to be here.
Okay. What was the pivot point where you're like, you know what? I'm leaving Lubbock and I'm going to DFW.
I'm grateful for Lubbock. I also did not feel like there was a lot of opportunity for growth. I did as much as I could while I was there in the 5 years. And then it just kept on ringing in my ears. Like, you got to get to Dallas-Fort Worth. That is where you can multiply and grow and develop and give your children like a higher level of education and all that good stuff. I think for me too is I've noticed here is there is a ton of entrepreneurial spirit and people that do support you or that you can also learn from along the way.
Yeah.
So I've been really grateful for that.
Yeah, that's good. And so I guess were you born and raised in Lubbock?
So I was born in Lawton, Oklahoma.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I am.
Okay.
Very serious.
So what's funny is I know where that's at because I used to live there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I wasn't born there,
yeah.
but I grew up there for a little bit.
Well, that's super cool.
Yeah.
So my grandfather was in World War II. And whenever he finished with his Army career, he did become a contractor for the government.
Okay.
And he stayed there. And my mom graduated from high school there. And then a couple of years later, she worked at the hospital. And here I am.
Nice.
So we relocated to Amarillo I was about 4.5 months old and stayed in Amarillo the majority of my life, minus some time in Rosenberg, Richmond near the Houston area.
Nice.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So once I moved to Lubbock, I brought 4 kids there and then met my husband at that time. And we had one more child together. And then we relocated here in 2004.
Nice. How old are the kids?
Oh, goodness.
Or they span from?
Yes, they're spanned from 32 to 22.
Okay, yeah. They're a little bit older, like ours as well too. Ours are out of the house and everything. So
Yes, I am a freedom nester.
Nice, I like that.
Which honestly, it did allow me to take this leap of faith.
Mm.
And I gave up corporate. I'm very grateful. I was in the multifamily apartment industry for 20 years.
Okay.
And it did afford me to be able to provide for my children and a really nice, decent life.
Right.
And whenever I just started thinking about everything, I was like, you continue to do this and you tell people it's your side gig or your hustle, your side hustle and small business. And it'll be 2 years in February that I took the full leap of faith and gave up the corporate portion of salary.
Okay. So you've been doing your side business for quite some time. And so 2 years, now you're full-time.
Yes. February will be my anniversary date.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. I took that leap in 2011. That was a scary moment. Yeah.
It's been real.
The experience I had whenever I went in, so I told my wife, I was like, okay, financially, we were able to leave the day job and just do our business. So we made up our mind. We said, okay, today's the day. I'm going to go in and give my notice. So I went in, talked to them. I get home. And so she's like, well, how'd it go? So, well, they gave me a raise and I'm staying.
I've been there.
About 3 months later, then I was like, you know what? I'm done and I'm out. And it was definitely a scary moment. Was that, did you find that your experience as well too, a scary moment?
It was honestly, I'll just be honest with you. I feel like God kept continuously telling me, hey, knock, knock.
Mm.
And in 2010, I did establish BlistFull Spaces.
Okay.
My mother, unfortunately, was on her deathbed and she was staying with me out in the Mansfield area. And one morning we just both woke up and she's like, you're going to leave the apartment industry. And I was like, do you realize how much money I make? And she's like, I don't care. She's like, this is not what you're meant to do long term. This was a stepping stone for you and the kids. And I'm like, well, unless you're going to give me a large amount of inheritance, how is this going to take place, Mom?
Yeah.
So I did start branding myself back then. And at that time, I had the special events and coordinating and all the custom decorations and backdrops that I'd already been utilizing and developing for people in the past. I put that underneath the same umbrella.
Okay.
But as I've grown, I've also noticed a lot of people had started naming their business very close to my name.
Oh, really?
And it seemed like, I all about collaboration. I don't believe in the actual word competition unless you're competing with yourself. So that way you get better every day.
Yep.
And so I just decided that I needed to kind of branch off the special events business and brand it with Air Blist events and then allow BlistFull Spaces to really be about bringing bliss back into people's full spaces.
Okay.
Because we all get items that get in our home. And there's times that, they either need to find a new place in the home or they need to go be donated or just absolutely thrown away.
Right, right.
So I just, I think that really spoke to me. And my mother did tell me, when it really boiled down to it is people need it more than you realize.
Yeah, for sure.
So
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So what got you into that line of work, that business, right? I mean, was there something like, a trigger moment for you or,
Well, I grew up with my grandmother. She was an amazing woman and severe OCD.
Okay.
So there was times where we would have a hard time being around her because she was so severe about it. And so it naturally was instilled inside of me. And I just decided to make it more for a positive experience. I am a firm believer that mentally OCD can be a bit challenging and taxing on people's, mentality and their daily functions.
Yeah.
But I wanted to utilize it for like a positivity, process versus like, oh goodness, this person, it battles with this and it's irritating me.
Right.
And so I feel like I've done a really good job about that. I love helping others. And then when they text me 3 or 4 months later and they're like, you don't understand, like you seriously have helped me and my family so much. I'm just greatly, appreciative towards you. And that right there alone, I'm just like, thanks, Mom. I know she had a hand in that, and of course, along with God.
Yeah.
Naturally, I was that girl that like if my friend invited me over for the weekend and, I noticed there was quite a bit of disarray or, I'm just like, oh goodness. there was never any judgment, but I'd be like, oh, let me help you with this, and she's like, I don't want to fold socks. I'm like, you don't have to fold socks, but they're all going to be in the same drawer. So I'd be like undoing her drawers and everything. And she's like, I didn't want to do this. I want to go ride our bicycles and I'm like, after we finish your drawers, then we can go out and play.
I got to invite you in my house.
Yes. Well, I'm more than happy. But it was just a very natural thing.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to make a positive spin to it.
That's pretty cool. I think it's so interesting as I've been doing the Biz Life, listening to people's stories and why they're doing what they're doing, and it really, to me, it just really sounds like this is a gift that you've been given. And, not only the gift, but then it births out of just loving on other people. Right. And now you have a place that you can do those things that seem so natural to you. And, you get revenue. So that's great.
It is. It's a big blessing.
Yeah.
Excuse me. In February, 2 years ago, I was still with the multifamily and had worked a 16.5-hour day.
Wow.
And was driving and fell asleep on the road and almost had a head-on collision with a semi.
Oh, wow.
And I was building a big house out in Alvarado, like $440,000 something home. Super excited about that.
Yeah.
And just got down on my knees when I got home that night and just thank God that number one, I survived it.
Yeah.
Number two, I was like, this can't be it for me. There's just no way.
Wow.
And so the next morning I woke up and I was like, not moving into the house.
Yeah.
Change of plans.
Okay.
And then I contacted the lender and I was like, yeah. And I'm like, what happens, if I don't have a job anymore? And he's like, oh my goodness, you're closing in 3 weeks. And I was like, but what happens? And he was like, I mean, you've got to get to the closing table. Are you going to get another job at the same industry, the same salary bracket? I'm like, I'm not sure if that's happening. And it felt weird to say it, but I knew. I was like, I'm done. And so here we are today.
Wow.
Total leap of faith.
Wow. So I assume you didn't close on that house.
Did not close on that house.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And left, and that's when that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back on quitting. And
yeah. I mean, honestly, I was a regional. And so that means you have a regional vice president that's above you that supports you and is supposed to be your umbrella, a bit of a shelter.
Yeah.
And when I contacted her that morning, ironically, it was around 12:40 a.m. when I almost had the accident. Oh. And you would think since you're exhausted, you could just go home and take a shower and crawl in bed and go to sleep. However, if anybody has ever had the feeling of anxiety and panic attacks, my body decided it wanted a different celebration for about 4 hours.
Wow.
And so whenever I finally started, feeling sleepy, I slept for like 3 hours, popped up, called her. And I was like, Adrienne, yesterday I worked 16.5 hours straight. I ate 3 bites of my Chick-fil-A sandwich and I almost had a head-on collision. I am exhausted. And she's like, well, what's going on? Did you wreck your car? And I'm like, well, it was in a lot of grass and, this area going towards Texas Motor Speedway. And she's like, I said, I haven't even looked at the car. I mean, I'm just glad I got home,
Yeah.
And she was like, okay. And she's like, well, what location are you going to today? And I was like, actually, I'm going to need a rest. I'm going to turn off the iPhone. I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm going to turn off the laptop. And she's like, well, please don't tell any of your team members that you're going to take a nap today. Can you tell your team that you're sick? And I knew then. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so total leap of faith, like I mentioned, but I'm very grateful. Yeah. And I really am doing everything that I love to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm blessed.
That is cool. Well, let's talk about the two businesses, right? Because I think you had mentioned earlier that they weren't two. They are now. Tell us about that transition and that process.
So whenever I had it underneath BlistFull Spaces, there was times where people would wonder, about the actual services that I offered. And so that's whenever I found that there was a couple of other special events companies that was closely named to this, I decided to separate it out. And so on the BlistFull Spaces side, it is literally focused on professional organization, decluttering, helping people with estate sales or prepping for them. We also do garage sales. Okay. And then we help people also relocate. So for example, I've helped several local residents when they have been in a large home and they need to downsize
Mm.
or go to like a retired living community. And so
Yeah.
I help them maximize their new space and also help them decrease and downsize what they currently own
Okay.
and take their new their original treasures to their new place.
Gotcha.
And then Air Blist events, we focus on custom backdrops, decor, centerpieces, and then of course balloon garlands as well.
Okay.
But we are not just a balloon garland company. I love those companies, but I've got such a great creative wheelhouse, not only inside of my brain, but I surround myself with other creatives.
Yeah.
And so if somebody brings an idea to me, I can really like take it like a whole nother level.
Right.
And that's something that I love to do.
On that business, is there particular events that you cater to or that you like to do, or?
Really, right now, my favorite has been like more on the birthday party, gender reveal, baby shower, engagement parties.
Okay.
I love weddings.
Yeah.
However, I feel like there are times where it can get a bit stretched thin, not only on your creativity, because a lot of the venues now put their perimeters and their rules and all their regulations on,
Yeah.
you can't blow bubbles and you can't have fireworks and you can't.
Right.
So with birthdays, gender reveals, baby showers,
Yeah, a little
surprise engagement parties, they tend to be a little bit more open and a lot more creative.
Do y'all handle any commercial type events, or is it mainly?
Absolutely.
You both? Okay.
Yes. I actually did just do this morning an installation for an open house and a ribbon cutting for a company in Cleburne.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And for that particular event, what all did you do? Give us a picture of what it looks like.
Sure. That particular one, we did scape around a large Christmas tree and created the garland to be focused with that style of decoration.
Okay.
I believe it is a 7 foot tall, probably 8 to 9 feet long.
Oh, wow.
And so it caps it off. And so the tree is on one side and then the balloon garland goes all the way to the left and to the top.
Oh, that's cool.
So that way when people stand there on the ribbon cutting in the open house, they can stand in between all of that. And they're going to have their backdrop of their company logo.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. And then, so really just to, I guess, clarify each business, you wanted to break them up so that way they would stand alone in any kind of marketing and things like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And with Air Blist events, I got to actually place the word events with it.
Okay.
With BlistFull Space, my mother actually named it for me and said BlistFull Space. And so I added the S on
Okay.
Shortly after she passed away because I was thinking, I don't want to just be in one space. I need to be in spaces.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the umbrella of the services was so wide
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, I need the plural on the end of the space.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, the more I kind of Googled and just got to know more people, they had a piece of this name in their events company.
Okay.
So I took the word air because a lot of times you do blow up balloons for events.
Okay.
And then put my word BLISS from my mother, naming this company.
Yeah.
And I just put them together. So Air Blist events.
I love it.
Thank
Very,
you.
very cool.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite event that you've done?
This year,
Sure.
I've had 2 favorite events.
Okay.
One of them was a 40th birthday. And, you would think at your 40th it'd be something serious or, but she wanted to do Candyland and game night theme. And I took both of them and I incorporated all custom centerpieces. There was nothing, of course, there were some store-bought items like we did the Candyland. I found a game actually I think it was at Harvest House, and I bought the game there.
Wow.
And then I laid it out on the cake table and then made a centerpiece of the Candyland pieces, put candy inside the centerpiece, and then put her napkins on the Candyland game.
Oh, there you go.
And then I customized her a big bee with all kinds of Monopoly and checkers and Candyland pieces and Scrabble on a big bee right beside her cake. So it was a lot of fun.
There you go.
And then the other event that is dear to my heart was Harvest House. I did their brunch.
Oh, okay.
So I did the entire stage. I made all the centerpieces, 31 centerpieces.
Oh, wow.
And then I did the balloon arch in the area of the entryway at the Pathway Church.
Mm.
So people could take pictures there,
Yeah.
and then just made sure the stage looked really good for Jennifer and Amber.
Oh, that's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, they do good work at
They do.
Harvest House. Yeah.
I love them. They're an
Mhm.
amazing, amazing place.
Yep. Our martial arts school here in Burleson always gives every year. We do a big canned food drive at all of the locations. And we bring in a lot of food and clothing and stuff for them.
I'm very impressed with everything. I also did help out with their timeline,
Mm.
which, it was the first time I'd ever done anything like that. But I read a bunch of articles about just even where they started.
Mm.
And it was a different name. It was a different entity.
Oh, okay.
And then they switched gears a little bit, I believe about 2 years in. And I just read 40 years of history about it. And it was really neat. And they have a special place in my heart.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That is cool.
Very grateful to be able to be a part of that.
On your, either business, really looking back whenever you first started, I know you started, a good time ago before you quit your day job, basically. Looking back, what would you tell yourself, what you know now? What would you have told yourself when you were first starting?
To not treat it like it's a side.
And what do you mean by that?
Because the talent's always been there. A lot of knowledge and experience was already there.
Yeah.
And so I'd work my corporate and give them all of my main energy, a lot of my time, a lot of my efforts. And then I would make other people wealthier, which is not a bad thing at all.
Sure.
However, knowing now, just through the leap of faith and then the changes that I've been able to make, is if you have a talent and you have a desire and you have a dream, go for it. It's better to try, and learn.
Yeah.
Because what is that old saying? At first you don't succeed, try again.
Yeah.
That part right there.
There you go. That's good. Yeah. And I think, and I would agree with you for sure. If I were to go back, I'd probably tell myself the same thing. Right. But I think that just that, normal path that we took, I guess you say normal path. I don't know really if there's really a normal, right? But that path that we took, it probably just comes from, I guess, just seeing how life is and we just go that way and we really don't know, right? You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And when I say all that, it's like there's many people I'm sure that are in a corporate position right now. Right. And I don't ever want to say, okay, well, if you're at a corporate position, you shouldn't be there. You should own your own business. You should be a entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship and small business owner, it to me is not for the faint of heart.
Not at all.
Right. Not at all. And so I'd like to dive into that a little bit, right? From your experience. But it's a tough road to go down, right? Because every day it's like, okay, I put it this way. If you have an employee that's not doing what you're asking them to do over and over and over, what are you going to do? After you reprimand them and have these conversations with them, eventually you're going to say, look, you're fired. I need to find someone that is, right? But whenever you own your own business, you almost have to treat yourself like an employee. And I think sometimes some business owners need to fire themselves.
Ready to boost your business's impact? Fully Promoted Fort Worth is your one-stop destination for branding needs, specializing in branded apparel and promotional products. They help attract, retain, and engage customers. From custom uniforms to eye-catching items, Fully Promoted Fort Worth has you covered. Contact them today to unlock your brand's potential. 817-803-4404. Fully Promoted, your success, their passion.
There's been days that I have caught myself talking to myself.
They say
saying like, hey, it's time. You got to get on. You got to get on task. It's time.
Yeah. So, looking at the, the business owner mindset, right? What keeps you motivated on the day to day?
I read a daily devotional every morning.
Okay.
And after I get started from there, I definitely have a running to-do list. And I make sure that priorities come to the top.
Yeah.
it makes me feel better knowing like the bigger, more challenging items. If I just knock them out when I'm fresh in the morning, right after my devotional,
Mm-hmm.
I get going from there.
Yeah.
And then really just consistency and transparent communication and being genuinely yourself.
Yeah.
Has been really beneficial for me. I think also is paying attention to not only your gratitude bank, but also paying attention to others that you surround yourself with.
Let's talk about that. What do you mean by that? Your gratitude bank.
So my gratitude bank, for example, a couple of weeks ago, literally out of the blue, I had been praying because I needed some more financial support.
Yeah.
And definitely willing to work for it. And about 2 days passed by. And then somebody out of the blue just reaches out to me and said, you know what? I was going to do my own Christmas tree. You've been organizing our home. Can you come over here? Don't have a lot of money in our budget. However, we would love for you to come and, help us out. Well, I was already grateful, period. But that just filled that bank up, even more. Financially, it might not have resolved everything that I need and that I was praying for.
Yeah.
But the gratitude gave me that extra umph and that it's okay. This is another God wink. Keep it moving. Stay consistent. Stay faith-filled. Stay around the people that God have led you to and stay the course.
Right.
Step by step.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it's a week by week thing. Sometimes it's a day by day thing. Yeah, for sure, right?
For sure.
Yeah, and I love that, right? It's like for me, as life has gone on, my circle has gotten smaller and smaller, right? I think so many times we get caught up in this. I just want to have all these people and all these connections, but it's like, I mean, in business, I try to have a lot of connections. Right. Because you want to have those connections. You almost want to be that guy or that girl that's like, hey, call Amanda. She knows everybody. Or, like to be that guy that always has a guy. Right. But when it comes down to the inner circle of who you are and who you pull motivation from and gratitude from and all those things, I think a smaller circle is not a bad thing.
I agree.
What do you think?
I think when it comes down to the core of your being, you have to make sure that you protect not only yourself, but your brand and what you're working towards. If you are not familiar with, what's the word? Like the fish is out of the water. I don't ever want to be the fish out of the water.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I also, like you said, don't want to be swimming in this huge ocean to where I can't even recognize myself anymore because I'm too, and it is that word, busy.
Yeah.
Not being focused and being filled with the gratitude and the consistency. Yeah. So that's really what I mainly aim towards on a daily basis.
No, that's good. That's good. Okay. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what do you want out of your business? Where do you want it to be? What's your long-term goal?
That's exciting. I love that. Thank you for asking. So for BlistFull Spaces in January, I'm going to be traveling to New Braunfels and to San Antonio area.
Cool.
I have a best friend that lives there, and I'm going to stay with her about 2 days out of each week. And I'm going to start introducing BlistFull Spaces to the San Antonio area.
Oh, okay. You're going to branch out.
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's exciting.
My goal for that is my daughter, Breelene.
Okay.
She and her husband and their 2 children live in the New Braunfels area, and it is close enough to the San Antonio area. And I would love for her to be the regional of that branch.
Nice.
And we're going to build a team there, and it's going to create not only a sense of stability, and I would love for it to eventually just be her territory. She's going to be maintaining and handling it. Yeah. She's still a little, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I'll be able to quit my job. And that's okay.
Sure.
I won't need her to quit her job right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one that's going to be out there, be the face of it, developing the foundation for the business.
Nice. Okay.
So that is what's going to start happening with BlistFull Spaces.
Wow.
I would love to add the additional Air Blist after I stabilize. But BlistFull Spaces, I think for me on the BlistFull Spaces, is it truly can make a difference for people's mental health.
Yeah.
And that is very near and dear to me.
Yeah.
And I know that, ironically enough, the one that I'll be staying with in San Antonio, her name is Nancy. In I think it was 98 or 99, I was going through a major change in my life. And my house on the inside looked great, and the garage was a whole nother story.
Mm.
And she came from San Antonio and visited me, and she was like, "What is going on?" And I was just storing a bunch of baby stuff because, I'd had 4 back to back.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, if I ever have another one, I've got these clothes and this and that. And it was so interesting because she was like, no, this is overwhelming you. And I was like, well, I can't open the door. When I open the door, I'm just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So ironically enough, she's like, no, we're going through this. You're going to have a garage sale. You're going to make some money. And she just like whipped me into shape.
Oh, wow.
Even though the inside of my house was adorable, immaculate, decorated very nicely.
Yeah.
But that garage. And so for me, that was a pivotal moment for me as well. Because I thought I was doing a good thing by holding and storing all of those items just in case I got pregnant again.
Yeah.
But in all reality, I was seriously in a panic mode. I was going through a really ugly divorce, 4 kids.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my goodness, I've got to store and save all this stuff just in case if there's ever another day.
Right.
And in all reality, I did not need all of that. I mean, it was like an entire garage. It was some great stuff, great stuff.
Yeah.
And so with that being said, I know how it feels. So that's why I feel like this is a part of my superpower.
Yeah.
Because I can walk into any space, whether there is stuff all the way to the ceiling and there's barely a walking trail in an entire home.
Okay.
I don't see it as, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous or this is atrocious. I see it as this person needs my help and my team's help.
Yeah.
And in all reality, it could be like a life-saving reset for them.
Yeah.
And it really is just my talents that God has blessed me with.
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. And I can definitely see how, isn't sometimes our life that way, right? We have our life, let's say, people facing. We can look like we have it all together. But whenever, we have this room in our life that is just a mess, right?
Mm-hmm.
And until you're open and honest, or until, Lord willing, you have a friend that comes up and is like, hey, I want to talk to you about this room that I see, right? And I think it is a great gift that's been given to you to be able to see that and not just see, okay, I can organize this or I can clean this up, but you actually see it to where you're actually seeing the person, because that's really just a manifestation of maybe something that's inside is what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wasn't in panic mode over having another child. I was,
Right.
If I need to provide, it was also for like, I can sell these items. We have nice walkers. We have nice high chairs. We have nice toys.
Yeah.
We have good books and, like all this stuff. It was really good stuff. In fact, I made a lot of money on that. We had 2 garage sales and made a ton of money.
That's good.
And so that was another thing that taught me is even though I wanted to hold on to all this stuff for a maybe or a coulda, but in all reality, making that revenue helped me to the next step of my life.
Yeah.
For all of that stuff that I had in that garage.
So it was like a roadblock that was actually holding you back. And then once you're
Truly
able to
was.
do that, then it's like, okay, now be released of this because I have something else for you.
Mm-hmm.
And cool.
I utilized that money to relocate to Lubbock
Okay.
and changed careers.
Yeah.
And it really, ironically, that career in Lubbock, I used to provide services for people that had special needs. I did that for 6 years.
Wow.
And then helped with like a social, we called it a social day hab. And that helped them attend a nice community and develop hygiene skills and social skills and just a lot of really neat interactions for them. Even like game day, that was such a fun day for them. And so I did that for 6 years. And then I utilized that career, relocated here.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the day hab facility for me to support. So I became a group home manager on Allsbury in Burleson.
Oh, wow.
That was my start and lived in Mansfield.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, for those listening or watching, tell us, what area of your home do you find yourself not paying attention to so much that sort of has some clutter? I'd like to find out from the audience, where that space is. One thing that I've talked with, on our last podcast, we talked about, this common thread, and you're sort of mentioning, what you're saying is reminding me of this. I had a conversation, with a gentleman up in Canada this past summer, and we were talking about this common thread through our lives, that whenever you look back, you can see an event or a person that you met or something that happened that led you to this, that introduced you to this person that led you to this and this and this, right? And it's always, whenever you look back, you sort of see this common thread. I mean, I'm a person of faith, so I contributed that to God's hand in my life, right? And I know you probably do too. But, do you experience that as well too?
Absolutely.
Or am I just the crazy one?
No,
Yeah.
well, we are not the crazy ones. Actually, even whenever I was younger, I lived in Rosenberg, Richmond area, and I needed to relocate to Amarillo to be closer to family.
Yeah.
And my DECA teacher called a person in Amarillo that went to church with my grandfather and said, "Hey, I heard this young lady." And he's like, "She needs a very good job. She's got a big task at hand, ahead of her, and she didn't ask for this task, but she's stepping into it." And so he called another person at Dillard's, and I literally never filled out an application to this day.
Wow.
And became their top producer and never asked for that role or that position. And I just look back and I'm like, that was definitely a God wink. It was led. It helped me help my mother.
Yeah.
Support her and her two other children, which are my brother and sister.
Yeah.
And I just look back and I'm like, wow, that is so cool. And then that gentleman, he ended up retiring. It was a contracting company back then. I believe it was called Synac Shoes. And he referred me to JCPenney to go to their buyers, kind of like college courses to become a buyer. So I was in retail for quite some time. And I just look back and I didn't apply for any of those roles.
Right.
And so I've been really blessed, very blessed. I never applied for the apartment industry.
Wow.
And that has been the largest income and salary bracket that I've ever made.
Yeah.
So very blessed. And what I was going to say is I did not complete my college. I think 14 or 15 hours shy of a degree. However, I was making the salary as if I had the degree. So I've been very fortunate and blessed.
That's cool. Yeah. That common thread, I'm telling you, it's something.
It is a beautiful
and most,
thing.
And I didn't, I don't know. I really didn't think about that concept. 2 or 3 years ago, I started thinking about it because it was just blatantly obvious. I was like, okay, this person, this, it's like, all right, the Lord's setting something up.
Absolutely.
Right. So anyway, I like bringing that up and asking other people's thoughts on that as well too. So let's do this. We're going to shift gears. We're going to get into, here's one thing I like to do. I'm going to you're saying, here's the hot seat. I'm going to throw you on hot seat. Okay.
Great.
No, this will be fun. So usually later in the podcast, it's either those people that you know and love and that love you that are listening or watching or my wife. So tell us something that nobody knows about you.
Ooh. Gosh, that is big.
What's something that no one knows about you?
I'm not sure.
Or you could
I'm a pretty open book.
Yeah.
I will say a lot of people now that have recently got to know me in this past 2 years, especially being out here like in the Johnson County area.
Yeah.
Sounds very big.
Okay.
It was a very interesting time in my life. Whenever I was 20 years old, I became agoraphobic and didn't leave my house for a year.
Really?
It's hard to believe. It's even hard for me to believe.
Yeah.
Because I love people.
Yeah.
And I love to be social.
And what did you call that?
Agoraphobia.
Agoraphobia?
Agoraphobic.
Okay. And that's the fear of...
You do not want to leave your house.
Okay. Boy, I bet you there's a lot of people like that now after COVID though too.
I am so grateful that I already had the skills and the support and the backing.
So for a year, you didn't leave the house?
No.
Wow.
Did not. And
Okay.
it felt like 4 years.
Yeah.
It was seriously probably one of the most challenging times in my life.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, if you ever feel like, some people will say like, oh, I'm feeling in the dumps and I've been in my house for 4 days.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, this is going to sound like an odd question, but have you been showering? And they're like, what? And I'm like, have you been showering? And they're like, I did the second day in. I'm like, okay, well, you're 2 more days in. Please make sure you take a shower.
Yeah.
Well, ironically for me, I was the exact opposite.
Okay.
But with the therapist I had, he was from Canyon, Texas. He had been agoraphobic for 7 years before he
Oh, goodness.
got out of it. And then he took a bunch of classes. He was already a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, no kidding. Right?
Yes. And so whenever he met me, when he found out I hadn't left in like 7 months. And so when he came to my home and my mother helped guide him in, and I was, a little apprehensive because I'm like, this is a stranger, he's coming into my home. And Mom's like, well, I'm going to be with you the whole time. And so she was, and then he was looking at me and like just kind of going, okay. And I'm like, why are you looking at me like that? And he goes, did you take a shower today for me? Did you do your hair and your makeup for me? And she goes, oh, my mom goes, this is what she looks like every day. And he was like, every day, like since she's been in the house. And she's like, every day. And then he was like, wow, yeah, I think you've stumped me for the first time. And I was like, oh,
wow.
I was like, why? And he goes, normally if someone's been in the home this long, there is a lot of disorganization, a lot of clutter, et cetera, et cetera. And he was like, I'm just kind of in shock right now. And I was like, well, no, I mean, I love myself. I'm just scared to go out there.
What do you know what the fear was at the time?
There were several triggers, some big stuff.
Yeah. No worries. We don't get into it.
No, I'm very grateful for the support. And
no kidding.
It's just hard to believe.
No,
like sometimes I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine being stuck in the house now for an entire year.
I don't get sick very much, but the one thing that I hate about being sick, not just the feeling, is just being stuck, being at the house. I hate that. Well, shoot. And I would imagine, that there's probably plenty of people today that are in that situation really because of COVID, right? And just the fear of, being out in the world now, because since, we're locked down for, however long or whatever, but
that is true.
Yeah.
I've actually shared some of my story with people that say, like, I don't ever want to work at a location again. I just want to stay remote. And I barely like to leave my house now. And I just tell them, just make sure that you're still getting your, your social outlet, fulfilled, and make sure that you're being good to yourself and, try to go back to some type of normalcy.
Right.
Normalcy, whatever the big word is today.
Yeah.
Because it's not a good thing to be behind closed doors for a long term.
Yeah. Well,
that's not what we were meant to be. We're meant for connection.
True story.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, true story. No, exactly. No, I was just going to say thanks for sharing such a vulnerable spot in your life. Appreciate that.
I'm very grateful to be able to be on the other side.
Yeah, no, for
the
sure.
The outside.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
The other side and the outside.
Yes, for sure.
No pun intended. There it is.
I love it. Thanks.
Okay, so let's do this. Those that are maybe interested in BlistFull Spaces or Air Blist events, right? Let's talk to the audience and give a 30-second commercial about that and how they can get a hold of you and stuff.
Perfect. So with BlistFull Spaces, I am on Facebook, and you can find me under Bliss with a space and then capital FULL Spaces. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach me at 682-203-3313. If you are interested in a consultation, I'm going to highly request for you not to straighten up or tidy or start hiding things in other places. It actually helps me assess and evaluate if you leave your home as is. That way I can determine where the drop zones are, the hot spots, and the frequently used places, and divide and conquer those areas and help you come up with a functional space and put those things where they belong for you in your particular home. Everybody's home is different. And then for Air Blist events, the same thing. It's on Facebook, Air Blist is together with a space between the vents. And one of the things that I love to help everyone with is customization with backdrops and centerpieces. I can also do floral and bring your vision to life.
I love it. Well, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for that. And thank you for being on the Biz Life. I had a exceptional time. It was great.
Thank you, Donnie. I appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much again for watching. Please do me a favor. Please like, subscribe, share this out. It really does help build the channel. And thank you so much. And we'll see you next time on the Biz Life.